brings us, speaking of vibrating differently, to lots of vibrations. Stephen Schubert. Stephen, as an introduction, this is our first time doing a virtual reception together, so if you don't mind, I was going to read these two statements that you wrote, the two sentences about these two paintings.
Oh.
Crossings and Unity Stripes. Would that be okay, or would you
Please.
like to speak about them rather?
Please.
Before we, okay. So I'm starting with the one on the right, Unity Stripes, and Stephen wrote, since we're all made up of different stripes and colors, I wanted to recognize that even so, we are all united by more of what we have in common, most of which is below the surface. And then about crossings, the piece on the left, he writes, crossings is about discovering magic along our paths right now as we cross this new terrain. There is so much that is new to connect to. So as I mentioned, he's exhibiting these two pieces, and the one on the right, Unity Stripes, comes from a very well-established abstract series, whereas the piece on the left is brand new and harkens back to one of Stephen's earlier loves, surrealism. And Stephen is one of those artists, he mentioned to me, who experiences sort of very visceral message when it's time to change, to let go of whatever style he was working in and start from scratch, find a new style, find a completely new body of work. And we just got very lucky that we caught him in the midst of one of those shifts. So with that, I'd like to ask Stephen to please tell us about your new work and that shift. And
sure. Thank you. Thank you again. You know, I'm really, I'm grateful, first of all, that you are curating this and share such thoughtful, insightful observations about everybody's work. And so far, everyone that's spoken, you've inspired me, actually, because I'm not used to talking about my work really that much. But you know, you said something different about vibration and on this piece. So there is a figure on the bottom left, and it appears in a slightly altered form in the middle right. And I don't think I even mentioned this to Petra, but I was lying in bed, and I'm an insomniac, so it's treacherous all the time for getting rest. But my ceiling fan cast a shadow with the lights out on the ceiling, and the shadow was the inspiration for the figures, those two figures. And the shadow reminded me of someone falling through space, almost with a Gumby-like body. If you look at 5 blades of a shade, it creates someone looking like they're bailing out of an airplane or just doing a free fall. And I relate to that a lot in my life as a theme. And I suppose as I'm falling through this life experience, or I wouldn't say it's always feeling like I don't have a fear of falling necessarily, but the idea, that's how I feel like I move through things a lot of times. And although I'm referencing a descent, that's really kind of a metaphor for going just deeper into myself. And I'm always trying to figure out what's in there. What is it that connects us to everything? And you know, it's an interesting thing that all these bright colors appear, and it would look like, oh, this is a really optimistic kind of explosion of vibration of colors. It's in a palette I typically don't work in that much, although a lot of my earlier works and abstracts are very bright. But I make no mistake with myself when I look at this and realize that I'm always seeking to find myself and see where I connect with people and how do we connect with people. And I noticed there's a bunch of little characters that emerged in this piece. They almost look like you know, potato chip mice or something. They appear like 5 or 6 times, these little figures that are all dotted all throughout. They each have like 2 funny shaped ears, a head, a body, and 2 feet. And I don't know, I don't know where that came from, but I just love those shapes, and they feel like a version of me. And all I can say is that this was a wild ride to create. And when I was finished, I'm very critical of my own work, but I got delighted by the variety, and there was a lot of freedom here. And one personal note I want to share, other than my work, which is my personal note, in the middle, there's kind of a blue, thick blue line that makes a 90-degree turn almost smack in the middle of the painting. Originally, I had some words there, and I've done a lot of word pieces before, you know, that are bold, and it said, "Stop, look, and listen," which tied into my love of trains, and also something I grew up near railroad tracks and in New Jersey. And, you know, the house would shake a little bit. It was on the tracks, but, you know, you could feel when a heavy freighter was going by. And "Stop, look, and listen" is what appears at a crossing guard before you know, cross tracks. And I was having a cocktail with a friend of mine around a fire pit about a month ago. And he said, "Stephen, I love this piece. I love where it's going. I don't like the words, 'Stop, look, and listen.'" And he said, "It feels as though you don't trust us on some level, and it stops me from going in the piece." Now, I wouldn't say that I agreed with him categorically about words on pieces, but in this case, I agreed with him. And it felt to me that, Adam, you said this earlier too, adaptability. That's what's being asked of us always. But when the heat gets more intense, like it is now during this pandemic, universal, everything, all these things are bubbling up out of the shadows. It feels like more than ever, you know, have we been preparing ourselves? Who are we? You know, what is our meter of ability to respond to things and still maintain a connection to things that are valuable and good, you know, without lying to ourselves or anybody else? And so anyway, this piece came along and I just thought, take out those words. It feels freer to me. I'm so much more happy with what this is about. And yeah, Adam, in closing, just one other thing. I never got invited to go to a foreign country on behalf of my art, but I invited myself, and I have a love of foreign films, and I have a friend who used to go to a lot of film festivals with retrospects of his movies all over the world. And I looked so forward. He's not doing it now. He's much older and doesn't want to travel. But one of the things that influenced my work has been cinema and traveling internationally to going to festivals where you get a chance to be brushing cultures up against each other, not just in the films, but in the people you meet. And the whole time that you're there, it's like this tea bag of cultural experience you get dunked into that I absolutely miss and got so much from. So I think I'll conclude right here for now. And thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, and thank you, Stephen. It's interesting because even though you took out the words "stop, look, and listen," that's what the painting does to us. You know, it kind of makes us stop, look, and listen. You know, so it's just like it's good that you trust us. I think it's just it's a fabulous piece, and it really is just lets you travel so deeply. You know, there's so many passages in there. So
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
That was Stephen Schubert, and this brings us to Suki Kuss. My slideshow is out of order. I apologize, but we are at Suki. Suki, my dear, please forgive me. I gave